That used to be me. And back then, I used to believe things about fitness that simply weren't true. Like, what if I told you the most common fitness phrase you've heard your entire life is completely wrong? I'm turning my fat into muscle. It's physically impossible. Fat cannot transform into muscle. They're completely different tissues with different cellular structures. Yet somehow, this myth is everywhere. In gyms, on social media, even from some trainers who should know better. Well, today I'm breaking down what's actually happening when you lose fat and gain muscle. And the truth might completely change how you approach your fitness journey. Plus, I'll share the exact science-backed method that helped me and my clients achieve these transformations when everything else failed. And no, it's not another fad diet or crazy workout plan. If you've ever struggled with your body composition, this is the video that will finally make everything click. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mohammed, a longevity fitness coach with over a decade of experience helping people transform their bodies. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest misconceptions in fitness, the idea that fat can turn into muscle. Something I hear nearly every day from new clients, and I get it. The idea seems logical when you see someone's transformation. Fat decreases, muscle increases, so one must become the other, right? Wrong. This common belief not only defies basic biology, but it might actually be hurting your progress. Fat and muscle are fundamentally different tissues that serve completely different functions in your body. Here's the contrarian approach. Instead of trying to convert fat to muscle, which is impossible, we need to understand the two separate processes occurring simultaneously, fat loss and muscle synthesis, and how to optimize them both. Today, I'll break this down into 5 steps that will revolutionize your approach. 1. Understanding the fundamental difference between fat and muscle tissue. 2. The real science of fat metabolism. Where does it actually go? 3. How muscle is really built at the cellular level. 4. The body recomposition sweet spot. How to lose fat while gaining muscle. And 5. Practical strategies you can implement today for optimal results. As someone who's coached hundreds of clients through successful transformations, I've seen firsthand how understanding these principles can dramatically accelerate results. So let's dive deep into the science and practice of body transformation. Let's start with the basics. Fat and muscle aren't just different, they're fundamentally distinct tissues with completely different cellular structures and functions. Fat tissue or adipose tissue is primarily made up of adipocytes, specialized cells designed to store energy in the form of lipids. These cells can expand dramatically to store excess energy, which is why you gain fat when you consistently consume more calories than you burn. Muscle tissue, on the other hand, consists of protein-packed myofibrils organized into muscle fibers. These contractile cells are designed for movement and force production, not energy storage. They're rich in mitochondria, your cellular powerhouses, making them metabolically active even at rest. Why does this matter to you? Because once you understand that these tissues are completely different, you realize they require different strategies to address. You don't transform fat into muscle any more than you can transform a brick into a glass window. They're made of entirely different materials. This means your approach needs to be two-pronged. Strategies that target fat loss and strategies that stimulate muscle growth. Most people focus too heavily on just one aspect, usually weight loss, without considering the muscle building component. This distinction is crucial because it's the foundation for everything else we'll discuss. If you're trying to convert fat into muscle, you're chasing the impossible. But when you understand these are separate processes, you can optimize both simultaneously, which is exactly what we'll cover next. The biggest mistake I see, people starving themselves to lose weight, losing muscle in the process, then wondering why they still don't look toned despite being lighter. Remember this, weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. Your goal should be fat loss while preserving or building muscle. Here's the $1 million question. When you burn fat, where does it actually go? The answer surprises almost everyone. You don't actually burn fat in the literal sense. Fat doesn't get converted into energy. According to a fascinating study published in the British Medical Journal, when fat leaves your body, 84% of it is exhaled as carbon dioxide, and the remaining 16% becomes water that leaves through urine, sweat, and other bodily fluids. Let me repeat that. You breathe out your fat. When your body mobilizes fat stores, it breaks down triglycerides into their component parts. These eventually get converted into carbon dioxide and water through a complex metabolic process called oxidation. So, how do you trigger this process? Your body mobilizes fat stores when you're in a calorie deficit, consuming fewer calories than you're burning. This creates an energy shortfall that forces your body to tap into its fat reserves. The most effective approach combines a moderate caloric deficit, typically 300 to 500 calories below maintenance, regular cardiovascular exercise to increase daily energy expenditure, strength training to preserve muscle mass during weight loss, and adequate protein intake. We'll talk more about that later. A 2019 meta-analysis in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition, that's a mouthful, found that losing fat at a rate of 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week is optimal for preserving muscle mass during the fat loss phase. Understanding that fat literally leaves your body through breathing should change how you think about burning calories. Exercise isn't just about the calories burned during the workout, it's about increasing your metabolic rate throughout the day, which increases how much carbon dioxide and water, which is broken down fat, you expel. Here's something most people don't realize. The treadmill display showing calories burned is incredibly misleading. Your body continues to burn additional calories for hours after intense exercise through something called EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. This is why high-intensity interval training and strength training are so effective for fat loss compared to steady-state cardio alone. Now that we understand how fat leaves the body, let's talk about how muscle is built, a process called muscle protein synthesis. When you perform resistance training, you create microscopic damage to muscle fibers. Your body repairs this damage by fusing muscle fibers together, adding more protein filaments, and making the muscle stronger and larger. This is called hypertrophy. But here's the critical part. This process requires building blocks, specifically protein and energy. A groundbreaking 2018 study in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition found consuming zero point 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight daily optimizes muscle protein synthesis for most individuals. Unlike fat cells, which simply expand and shrink, muscle cells actually increase in number and size through this repair process. This is why building significant muscle is generally slower than losing fat. You're literally constructing new cellular structures. To stimulate muscle growth effectively, train with progressive overload and until failure, gradually increasing weight or reps over time. Prioritize compound movements that engage multiple muscle groups. Ensure adequate protein intake, aiming for 20 to 40 grams of high quality protein per meal, and allow sufficient recovery between training sessions, about 48 to 72 hours for specific muscle groups. Personal anecdote. When I first started coaching, I had a client who was training 6 days a week with heavy weights but seeing minimal muscle growth. When we analyzed his diet, he was consuming barely zero point 0.5 grams per pound of body weight of protein. Within 3 months of adjusting his protein intake to 1 gram per pound while actually reducing his training frequency to 4 days per week, his muscle growth accelerated dramatically. Building muscle is a constructive process that requires resources while losing fat is breaking down stored energy. This fundamental difference explains why the nutrition and training strategies for each goal can sometimes seem contradictory. Which brings us to our next point: how to accomplish both simultaneously. The biggest muscle building myth I need to debunk right now: more is better when it comes to training. Research shows training a muscle group more than 2 to 3 times per week with adequate intensity often leads to diminishing returns or even regression. Recovery is when growth happens, not during the workout itself. Now, for the holy grail of fitness, body recomposition, losing fat while gaining muscle simultaneously. For years, many experts claimed this was impossible except for beginners, but recent research has proven otherwise. A landmark 2020 study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research demonstrated that experienced lifters could indeed gain muscle while losing fat through strategic nutrition, timing, and training protocols. The key is finding the precise balance between creating a slight caloric deficit while providing adequate nutrition around training to support muscle growth. It's a metabolic tightrope walk, but it's absolutely achievable with the right approach. Here's how to hit that sweet spot. Create a moderate caloric deficit, about 10 to 20% below maintenance. Consume higher protein than traditional recommendations. Practice nutrient timing, higher carb intake around your workouts. Prioritize sleep and stress management to optimize your hormones, and follow a properly periodized strength training program. The most successful approach I've found with clients combines calorie cycling, eating closer to maintenance on training days and in a slightly deeper deficit on rest days, with strategic carbohydrate timing around your workouts. Body recomposition represents the most efficient path to transforming your physique, although genetics do play some role in how well you can do it. But the traditional approach of bulking and cutting work great as well. Mastering recomposition will completely change how you approach fitness. The fitness industry doesn't want you to know this. Most supplements promising burning fat and building muscle are complete garbage. The few that do work, like creatine for muscle building and caffeine for fat mobilization, have modest effects compared to the fundamentals we're discussing. Mainly focus on protein, progressive overload, and consistency. Let's bring everything together into an actionable plan you can start implementing today. The research is clear. Successful body transformation comes from consistency with proven fundamentals, not from hacks or shortcuts. A comprehensive study published in the International Journal of Obesity followed successful transformations over a 5-year period and found that the strongest predictor of success wasn't the specific diet or exercise program, but adherence and consistency with a few key habits. Here's your 5-step action plan. 1. Calculate your energy needs. Use the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation to estimate your basal metabolic rate, or use a smart scale which can give you your basal metabolic rate. Then multiply by an activity factor. Create a deficit of 300 to 500 calories below this number. 2. Set your protein target. Multiply your body weight in pounds by 0.8 to 1 gram to get your daily protein target in grams, and divide that evenly across 4 to 5 meals throughout the day. 3. Design your training split. Focus on 3 to 4 strength training sessions per week, emphasizing on progressive overload, plus 2 to 3 sessions of moderate intensity cardio or high intensity training. 4. Track and adjust. Monitor your progress through photos, measurements, and performance metrics, not just scale weight. Adjust calories every 2 to 3 weeks based on your results. And 5, prioritize recovery. Ensure 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep and implement stress management practices like meditation or nature walks. Let me share what this looked like for me personally. When preparing for my last fitness photo shoot, I maintained a modest deficit of 400 calories, consumed 175 grams of protein daily, trained with weights 4 days per week while walking daily. The transformation took 12 weeks, and I never had to resort to extreme measures. These 5 steps represent the blueprint for successful body transformation based on the scientific principles we've discussed. They address both sides of the equation, fat loss and muscle building, recognizing that these are separate processes that can be optimized simultaneously. The one thing I wish someone told me years ago: consistency with fundamentals beats perfection with the latest trend every single time. The people with the best transformations aren't following some secret protocol. They're just doing the basics better and more consistently than everyone else. So there you have it. The truth about fat loss and muscle building, backed by science and proven through thousands of successful transformations. Let's recap what we've learned. Fat and muscle are completely different tissues with different functions and cellular structures. Fat doesn't turn into muscle. Fat is primarily exhaled as CO2 after being broken down. Muscle is built through a process of damage and repair that requires adequate protein and progressive overload. Body recomposition, which is losing fat while gaining muscle, is possible with the right strategic approach. And consistent implementation of science-backed fundamentals will always outperform fads and shortcuts. Understanding these principles has helped countless clients break through plateaus and finally achieve the results they've been chasing for years. The human body is complex, but the path to transformation doesn't have to be complicated. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you're serious about your fitness journey, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate you guys. Drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway from this video in particular, or any questions that you might have. I personally read every comment and I try to respond to as many as I can. Remember, you now know more about fat loss and muscle building than most people in the gym. Apply these principles consistently, trust the process, and your transformation is inevitable. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.